bring your mind under control. If you just control the mind, it's just an action. That's all you're doing, right? So you're just saying to your mind, be quiet. But even in the worst of times when my mind just drags me, there's several things I need to show is compassion towards myself, empathy towards myself, and love towards myself. If I don't show these three things, then I cannot attain the spiritual merit. So imagine that this is a spiritual deposit. Every time I bring my mind into balance, it's a spiritual deposit. It's another way of saying something. So when I show compassion, even if my mind is terrible, what's happened is that they are guardians of the heart. And these guardians are not, I call them the food dogs. The Chinese food dogs that sits on both sides. But consciousness has a built-in, imagine that consciousness has a built-in software, which it doesn't. And it requires you to see yourself in the greatest regards. And if you don't see yourself in the greatest regards, no matter what practices you do, doesn't matter if you stand in front of that altar, doesn't matter if you chant, it is totally disregarded. It's like null and void. So you can burn all the incense, you can do all the things you want to do in life, but if you do not place yourself into that one-pointedness, with compassion, with grace, with empathy, with love, if you don't have and recognize that's part of that point, you don't get your deposit in your spiritual bank. The heart, nor meditation, responds. Basically the bottom line. The heart doesn't respond. The heart doesn't respond. So what happens is that we try to shift a relationship with ourselves. And what happens is that ultimately we're afraid of intimacy. That's basically, we all say we want intimacy, but at the bottom line, we're terrified of intimacy. We all say it's what we want in relationships. So is meditation a form of intimacy with yourself? Totally. So the heart demands intimacy. Bottom line. And that intimacy, we're going to talk about over and over and over. But that intimacy and that deposit. Now, if I just say, I've just done this, ka-ching, it doesn't work. Because the universal laws go, I don't think so, Mary Louise. And it just moves it over into the trash file. So it isn't something that we can fool ourselves. It's only through the most genuine acts that the universe actually recognizes it. Tremendous compassion. Intimacy is a space, a void of silence that is shared between ourselves and God, that has no language and no color. It is just pure consciousness. And we avoid this at all costs. But we also avoid the same intimacy in telling the truth. Because we have an innate ability never to really tell the truth. We explain ourselves and we say what we want, but we never really tell the truth. I'm not saying you're liars, but as a culture, we never really say what we want because we don't know how to. We get close to being able to tell the truth. I'm not saying the truth. There is the truth of what we think, and then there is the truth that lies within the intimacy of what we really want to say, or really need to say, but we don't know how. And we'll go through this where you just stand still. The other day, I had this massage therapist come to the house so that I slow myself right down to get ready for these retreats. And a friend of mine arrived and she was buzzing around, and I said, oh, you know what, you're going to get a massage because... And she goes, what do you mean? I said, oh, we're going to slow you right down. And she'd never even expected that. But what happens is that you need to slow yourself right down to begin to figure out what you are. Self-realization doesn't exist in the mind. So even though we think it is a mind experience, even though we experience it in the mind, self-realization happens on a soul level, not from a psychological or a mind perspective. Self-realization can only happen through meditation. Meditation is not about doing. I mean, people say, I just sit there, nothing happens. Well, how lucky are you? Like, what are you expecting? Oh, I want some visualization, No! This will eventually come and go. But if you can just sit there and nothing happens, sister, let me tell you, let me drink from your cup, because that's exactly. So people think that meditation needs to be this thing that you're just unconscious. You don't need to be unconscious for meditation. That's not what meditation is about. There are layers of meditation. Meditation is that we can sit in silence and witness the abode of the self. Meditation is not about a Hollywood experience. It is about the abode of experience ourselves. The reason I keep coming back to intimacy, if you look at meditation, not from the perspective of sitting in silence, but and expecting something, meditation is the dance between the heart and the soul. It's the deepest form of intimacy. And if you can start looking at that meditation is this dance, this profound nectarian dance between the heart and the soul. Just as you listen to a piece of music and you're just in awe of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and you're going, whoa, and every cell in your body, that intimacy, your mind doesn't know what next note is going to be played. You've surrendered yourself to something that is greater than your own personality. And so meditation is a vehicle that gets us into experiencing between the dance of the soul and the heart. And in that recognition that meditation is intimacy, not just silence. Meditation is intimacy. And when you recognize that that is intimacy, you begin to deposit into your spiritual bank, and you start developing a deeper sense of a soul identity instead of personality identity. And so meditation gives us the opportunity to balance out the personality identity with soul identity. And without having this, we're overextended in one or the other. So, last year, and this is a very big point because I'm going to go back, what is the difference between emotions and feelings? And I have talked about this and talked about this and talked about this. And the reason why is because you cannot experience intimacy. And I don't mean just intimacy with another person. I'm talking about intimacy with the inner self, the soul. Unless we can move and understand and define the difference between emotions and feelings.